And I'm back with another video of me just rambling about Yu-Gi-Oh crap again. But this time I have something that's grinding my gears. The Charmy cards. I don't think they're well designed at all, and I don't think they solve the problem with going second as well as they should be solving it. But simply put, I think basing how much help the activating player needs on the opponent either performing a game action or interacting with a game mechanic is a fundamentally flawed form of balancing. But hey, if that's all you cared about, you could click off now. I don't care. You probably have something better to do than listen to a white guy yap on YouTube. As for everyone else, here's my reasoning. But before we continue, we have to go over what the Charmies actually do. There's three of them: Fuelos, Perulia, and Meows. All of them share the following aspects. If you control no cards, you can act at quick effect speed, discard them to use their effect, and for the rest of the turn, if the opponent summons from a specific location, you draw one card. Fuelos does deck or extra deck, Perulia does hand, and it does include the normal summon for some godforsaken reason, and Meows does grave and banishment. At the end of the turn, if you have more cards in hand than the opponent has on field, you shuffle cards back into the deck randomly until you have the amount they have on field plus 6. So if they end with 2 cards on the field and you have 10 in hand at the end of the turn, you shuffle back 2 randomly because 2 plus 6 equals 8. And you can only activate 2 Charmy cards per turn. So you can activate a Fuelos and a Perulia, but you can't activate Meows that turn. Or you could just do, okay, Fuelos, new chain Fuelos, and then your opponent wants to kill themselves. But I think the way these cards are made is not real balancing. It is punishing the opponent by giving you more cards whenever they perform a game action. Which means it is basically turning a game mechanic into a metric for how much help you need. Which is not really okay when it's done retroactively through a card effect. To start, we'll hit my most obvious point. No two decks are built the same. Let's just say we have 2 decks, Deck A, Deck B. Both end on basically the same end board, right? Deck A, let's say it gets there through like 3 or 4 summons. And Deck B takes a double-digit number of summons to do the same thing. Now let's say a Charmy drops. Let's say Deck A may only give 1 to 2 draws for that specific Charmy. Deck B may give double, triple, maybe even more into the same card. How is that fair? But let's remove the hypothetical and take 2 real decks minimum end boards. One that saw play, one that currently sees play, and let's just see how they compare under each Charmy. And by minimum end board, I mean the end boards they would make into specifically Fuelos, but we will count how many draws they would give off the other Charmies as well. Let's start with the first deck I play, Bestial Control. Their end board for opening exactly 1 Black Metal Dragon under a Charmy may consist of Seal's Max Metamorph Pass. Getting there gives 2 draws off Fua, 2 draws off Perulia, 1 draw off of Meows. Functionally, it's 2 disruptions. The board also hard loses to Ash, Impulse, and DD Crow. I wish I was joking. If you hold one of those 3 hand traps against this deck, you do just win the game if they don't have more extenders in hand to use on your turn. because you will cut them off of the body they would need for Max Metamorph, or you negate Max Metamorph. Either way, they lose one of the best cards in their entire deck. Next, we'll do Orcus Canine. They're inboard off Jokel and a level 5, which, in my experience, is just as, if not more, consistent of an opener than opening Black Metal in Bestial Control, and I wish I was joking. But their inboard under Charmy may consist of Canine Ripper, IP Masquerena, Forced Release, Azuna in hand, guaranteed follow-up. This gives 2 draws off Fua, 2 draws off Perulia. It does 3 for both of them if they have to lead a Orcus name to get to their level 5. But if it's just straight up Jokel and any level 5, it is 2 draws off Fua, 2 draws off Perulia. And 3... Or, not 3. Sorry, I'm reading off a script and I don't normally do that. It gives 1 draw off of Meows. This is 6 disruptions. And it also doesn't hard lose to a singular hand trap. Are the qualities of interactions different? Yeah. Are the decks trying to do different things? Absolutely. Can they set up different boards for different Charmies? Yep. But these boards are not built the same at all. The Orcus Canine board is going to be a lot harder to crack with just more hand traps going second than it is going to crack Bestial Control's inboard, which, if you hold a bunch of hand traps, just gets dismantled. And the opponent is going to be more likely to see one of those cards after 2 draws, and then they have a draw for turn. And the opponent would need multiple hand traps to fully dismantle a Canine Orcus setup the same way. But that's not all. In either scenario, will the opponent have to shuffle cards back, as the negative drawback of the Charmies only gets met if the person who activated it has more than 6 cards over the amount of cards, more than 6 cards in hand over the amount of cards the opponent has on field. This drawback comes up so little that the only time I have ever seen it occur in my life, in practice, is a format where custom cards were legal, and I was using a deck that could crap out so many bodies in a single turn that once I started, it didn't matter if you had a hand trap, you would have to activate a hand trap that tributes my entire field for cost, by the way, and I would still have gas to keep going. I would not have cared. But you know what feels worse? Seeing 2 of the same Charmy drop against you. Playing into it already just nets more advantage for your opponent than just playing into 1 Charmy. And I can explain. So the first time they draw, it's going to be card neutral. However, with 1 less Charmy in their deck, they are very, very slightly more consistently going to hit a playable card. On top of that, if you play into it a second time, they're already going plus 1 billion, is what it feels like. They'll draw 2 more, which feels awful. It feels so bad. Card draw is one of the most broken things in Yu-Gi-Oh! If I get hit by double Charmy, double of the same Charmy, I've never had a scenario where playing into them was the correct option at all. Every time, it was always better to pass turn on nothing and just hope I had hand traps in hand so I could just hope I stop my opponent who's going to have 4 cards to start their turn. Because there was no point in playing into it. And by the way, the only time I just decided, you know what, it's not worth playing into it, I'm just going to skip my own turn, it won me the game. It was the correct option. The first time I did it, I was like, yeah, this is just what I'm going to have to do from now on. I can't do this anymore. Like, it feels so bad, but I just have to. It's better to just end on basically nothing and hope I have a couple hand traps than it was to play into double Charmy. But let's take a polar opposite card in Droll and Lockbird. Yes, we're gonna rake the Bird and Twink through the coals as well. I play Yu-Gi-Oh, damn it. Droll, for those unaware, if a card is added from the opponent's main deck to their hand, you can send it from hand to grave. Another player can add cards from the deck to the hand for the rest of the turn. Absolutely insane card, and a lot of the community agrees it just needs to go. It basically auto-wins some matchups. It's so frustrating to play into, and it's even more frustrating when the person going first uses it. But I'm not going to talk about any of that. I think this card's a lot more similar to Maxi than people realize. Instead of punishing the opponent for searching or drawing by doing something every time they do so, it just says, oh, you did it once? You can't do that no more. And do I need to say it? That's not healthy balancing. What if the opponent is foolishing their cards? What if they're just setting their cards from deck? This card punishes some decks way harder than others and doesn't actually do its job of making going second more fair. It makes it more sacky. Ask a Sky Striker player how much they like to see that Twink hit the opponent's grave, and you might learn a new slur or two. But again, no 2 decks are going to be making the same inboard. So you could have 2 completely different meta-tiered decks. One of them might make 1 interaction into Droll, the other might make their full board. But let's take a bad deck in Earth's Arctic. That deck has a card that functionally reads as draw 7 cards. I've played against Earth's Arctic multiple times. I still don't know what their inboard does uninterrupted. I just straight up don't know. To quote the funny streamer, do you know how hard you have to work to make a deck that says draw 7 bad? Why would you do that to the 4 Earth's Arctic players out there? Haven't they suffered enough? Do you really need to Droll and Lockbird Earth's Arctic going second? Almost every lingering floodgate hand trap in the game either punishes the opponent for interacting with a specific mechanic, or it outright denies them the ability to use a mechanic. Functionally, this kind of bases how much help the activating player needs, usually and hopefully going second, on an arbitrary flawed metric of how much does the opposing deck do or use X. But it never considers how much they're actually setting up at all. But do I think the Charmies should be banned? Yeah. They make going first frustrating while enabling some really unfun and uncreative gameplay and deck building. On top of that, they're oppressive enough to make people want to play cards specifically to beat them in some way, which potentially increases the play rates of other cards, which is, in my opinion, very unhealthy for individual staples to do. However, they do make going second better in some way, shape, or form. So if we ban them, how do we fix that? Well, I'm not going to bash a bunch of cards without providing solutions. And I have a combination of solutions that I'll break into parts. Part 1. Make engine cards better when going second. Yeah, a lot of these are going to be pretty obvious, but can you really blame me? I really like cards such as Shaddoll Fusion and Ketu Dracotail. I think they are very well designed cards. Cards you want to get in archetype already, but they get stronger if you resolve them going second. I really want to see more archetypes have cards like this. Part 2. Allow archetypes to natively break boards. I hate to say it, but Mitsurugi did do something right. Murakumo being a built-in board breaker as you perform your combo is very nice. Mitsu, obviously, is a very poorly designed deck. Have you read Habakiri? Have you seen what Habakiri does? But their ability to chew through boards, partially due to them having a built-in board breaker into their design, I think is very good on their design. And the first two parts, whenever I design a custom archetype, I tend to at least take one, if not both of those ideas or philosophies, and incorporate those into the archetype to make going second more tolerable. Part 3. Put locks on stuff, for the love of God. A lot of our issues are coming from the fact that nothing seems to have a meaningful lock. This makes inboards way stronger than they have any right to be. Both K9 and Yummy have pretty manageable inboards, but if you throw a second archetype in there that has little restrictions and can either get to the other engine itself, or the other deck gets into this supplemental engine, all hell breaks loose. You know, with the hypothetical archetype. But if you really want to know, the hypothetical archetype is Mitsurugi. We glazed the lizards enough today. Part 4. Make better and more creative non-engine. Non-engine with restrictions. Non-engine tailored to specific metagames. Non-engine with unique yet useful applications. Etc. This will make non-engine more diverse. It will bring more creativity to the 15 or so slots we have for non-engine at this point in time. But what would it look like? Well, I have some examples. I have 3 non-engine main deck cards I want to show off. First, the normal Trap Disperse. It allows you to target a special summon monster on the field, except one that was summoned from the extra deck, and return it to the hand. This card can also be activated from the hand, but you can only summon from the hand once until the end of the next turn. It has the ability to allow you to dodge your targeted effects like Imperm, but also having a pretty harsh restriction that limits what decks can run it. And with the factor that can only target special summon monsters, you can't shotgun it on a Marincess blue tank and screw Marincess over or something. Second, the normal spell Brainjacking. This card can only be used if the opponent summoned 3 or more times from the same location, either the graveyard or the hand, in the same turn within the current turn cycle. It will allow you to non-targeting snatch steal the monster your opponent controls with the greatest attack, their choice if tied, and if they control 5 or more cards, this card's activation cannot be negated. This is a card meant to be played into specific formats, but also not be too frustrating. I specifically only protected the activation from negates to promote decks going out of their way to play more cards that just negate the effect rather than the activation. And third, the level 4 Wind-Winged Beast Bombardment Birdie. This is a monster hand trap with 1500 attack and 1500 defense that allows you to, during either player's main phase, reveal it in hand and target a special summon monster your opponent controls. Destroy both it and this card in your hand, then you can draw 1 card. However, if you're the one who controls 3 or more cards, your opponent draws a card instead. You can only resolve Bombardment Birdie once per turn, and if you do, you cannot activate it on your next turn. The goal behind this card's design was to have it replace itself, but also not be susceptible to negates, which is why you can only resolve it once per turn. And also, it punishes you if you use it going first by giving your opponent an extra card if you control 3 or more yourself. And the final part. Make extra deck staples that are good going second. Generic extra deck staples. We've proven that Lynx and Xyz monsters are prime candidates for this kind of designs. Cards like SP Little Knight or Super Star Slayer Typhon are immediate standouts, but Typhon feels weak. So we gotta make a new one. Introducing Time Thief Rewinder, a rank 4 Dark Psychic with 2800 attack and 1600 defense, whose summoning materials are 3 level 4 Psychic and or Machine monsters, but you can also summon this card while your opponent controls more cards than you by using one monster you control the turn your opponent has resolved the effect of a card that negated the activation or effects of a card you control. Upon Xyz, summon, you can target a face-up monster the opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. During the main phase on Quick Effect, you can detach one material from Rewinder to copy an activated on-field effect of the monster detached. This allows you to have a second chance at resolving one of your cards going second, while also nullifying some interaction at the same time. I know the wording is going to be very foreign to Yu-Gi-Oh, but this card is more of a proof of concept experimental type thing. Because obviously I'm not Konami, I don't make the real cards. But that's really all I have to say today. It's a bit rambly and ranty, but I just needed to yap into the void about my dislike and disdain for the Charmies. Although I did do something productive here and at least list some things that could be somewhat useful at mitigating the going second problem, although it would take a very long time for it to be fully implemented, but I think it's going to be better than just a band-aid fix. Obviously, this is a card game. It won't be perfect, but I think we can do a lot better than just the Charmies. But to summarize, I believe cards like the Charmies, in my opinion, arbitrarily take mechanics of the game and to help the going second player punishes the opponent for interacting with those mechanics, functionally turning it into a metric of determining how much help the going second player needs based on how much a deck does X, which is a flawed and unbalanced form of design. If you wish to use the custom staples, they all should be public on Dueling Book. My socials and Ko-Fi are in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.